You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I am your host, Sean Bingham. Happy Friday to all of you. We've got a great Friday, great weekend coming up. We've got the Masters underway, one of the few golf tournaments I actually follow and care about. No Tiger Woods, unfortunately. We know that because of his car accident. Crazy stuff going on with him. But happy Friday, guys. I want to start today. By the way, whatever platform you're on, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google, Anchor, whatever it is, in the description, you can see the exact timing that I hit different topics, different segments. Feel free to skip ahead or skip back. I want to make sure you guys get all the content you want, so be sure and check out the description for the timing of everything. Also, whatever platform you're on, please subscribe. It really helps me grow the podcast, and so if you're liking what you're hearing, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You guys are awesome. I'm going to start today with some NBA talk. No surprise there. Love the NBA. Kind of a unique thing. This is I checked the box score last night. I did not watch this game, but it was the Bucks and the Mavericks, okay? And I see that the Mavericks win pretty big. It was 116-101. And I think, oh my gosh, like I have said that the Mavericks were a surging team and that the Bucks were kind of wilting away. Maybe this is coming, maybe this is proving true, right? Well, then I checked the box score because, again, I didn't watch the game. And I see that Giannis didn't even play. And I'm like, oh, okay, throw that theory out the window. Of course the Bucks are going to lose to the Mavericks when Giannis doesn't even play. Then I see, though, that Luka and Porzingis played really well. And by the way, Luka had 27, 9, and 9. And then Porzingis had 26 points, 17 rebounds, and 2 blocks. And I remembered, I was brought back in my mind to a time just not long ago when there was more parity in the NBA and the Mavericks picked up Kristaps Porzingis, and I saw how good Luka was, and I thought, these guys are just one solid piece away from being title contenders. And when I thought that last night, when I thought back to that moment a couple years ago, when I had that thought of the Mavericks being one solid piece away from being title contenders, not even adding an all-star or another superstar, but just a solid player, like a good third guy that would not be an all-star, but just a really good player. Someone like a CJ McCollum, right? So CJ McCollum's a guy that's right on the fringe of being an all-star. He's not usually, I actually don't know if he's ever been an all-star. I'd have to look. I think he has been, but he's a guy like that, right on the fringe, right? And I realized how incredibly far off that is now. Like, you could give the Mavericks another all-star and they still would not compete with this year's Nets team. This year's Nets team, for whatever reason, I know we've talked a lot about the Nets on this podcast, but for whatever reason, it hit me hard last night when I looked at that box score and I looked at like Kristaps Porzingis, Luka Doncic play really well. They beat the Bucks, and I thought you could add an all-star to this Mavericks team, a team that I thought was one solid piece away from being a title contender. You could add a all-star to them, and they're still not title contenders. That's how lopsided the NBA has gotten. This Nets team is beyond stacked. They are beyond stacked. You've got a guy like DeAndre Jordan. Andre Drummond's on the Lakers. You've got a guy like DeAndre Jordan. I'm trying to get my name straight here. You got a guy like DeAndre Jordan. This Nets team is so stacked. You've got a guy like DeAndre Jordan barely even getting minutes. He's barely even playing. Because they've got Blake Griffin and they've got LaMarcus Aldridge, and that's on top. And those are like second tier guys on their own team behind, of course, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris. I mean, the pecking order it's like the Nets are so freaking deep that if fully healthy, they are so stacked that if fully healthy, nobody in the NBA has a chance. No other team has a chance to beat this team if the Brooklyn Nets are fully healthy. Not the Lakers, not the Clippers, not the Jazz, not the Sixers, not the Bucks, not nobody. If fully healthy, the Nets are winning, and it is a battle for second place. That is truly what's happening. Like, it is so lopsided. This is more lopsided, in my opinion, than even that Warriors team with Durant, Draymond, Clay, and Steph. Okay, 4 all-stars on the same team. And it's crazy. Like, now, it used to be the duos, right? And I actually really liked it when this year or last year, it looked like it was coming back to the battle of the duos. You had Porzingis and Luka, you had Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, you had LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and there was just these different duos that were kind of lining up. Well, now all the duos are losing a guy because there was Harden and Westbrook on the Rockets. Now, obviously, Westbrook's with Washington, and it's him and Beal as a duo of a losing team. But then Harden's like, nah, I don't want to really be a duo. I'm going to take off and join the Nets. I'm going to go join the Kyrie-Kevin Durant duo. We're going to make it a trio. And then you add Blake Griffin, and then you add LaMarcus Aldridge, and then you add Joe Harris. And it's like, they're just incredible. Like, they're so stacked. They're so incredibly stacked. Nobody is beating them. And it got me thinking, I've had this theory for a while now, and this would never happen. This is kind of an outlandish theory because there's too much money in ratings. There's too much money in TV deals. There's too much money even in smaller markets. But I was thinking, and I've had this theory for a while, what if you got rid of the worst 5 to 10 teams in the NBA? Just hear me out. You literally just find a way to like buy them out. They sell the franchises back to the NBA, essentially, and the NBA eliminates them. You now eliminate, if you got rid of 10 teams, you're eliminating like 150 players, okay? And it wouldn't just be the 150 players from those teams. You'd be eliminating the 150 worst players in the league, and then you get a guy like a De'Aaron Fox, for instance, because maybe the Sacramento Kings get eliminated. You get a De'Aaron Fox who then goes to another team. So you have a remaining top 20 team. So you'd have all of these top tier players going and being on a lot of other quality teams, because right now the parity just isn't there. The NBA has been like this for a while. It's very predictable what's going to happen. We knew going into this season that it was going to be the Nets and the Lakers. Nothing's changed other than maybe some injuries. We'll see. It looks like everybody will come back healthy. That'll be the finals matchup, and it'll be fun to watch. I'm going to say the Nets win in like 5 or 6 if both teams are fully healthy. But anyway, the parity just hasn't quite been there. The NFL has great parity. Major League Baseball even has pretty good parity despite not having a salary cap. But the NBA kind of lacks parity. It's very predictable. You do have 5 or 6 teams, that could compete. This year, I've made mention that if there are injuries, that you're going to have, you're going to have a lot of parity then, because you'd have Clippers and Jazz and Suns and Bucks and Sixers, Nuggets even I'd throw in there now. With the addition of Aaron Gordon. But if fully healthy, it's Lakers and Nets, and the Nets are going to win. We know this is going to happen. So what if you get rid of these bottom 10 teams? You could find a way to figure it out. You could go off of revenue, off of ratings, off of record for the last 10 seasons or so, playoff appearances, owners' desires to just sell and get money. There could be a way to figure out which teams would be selected for elimination, or maybe they're just form a secondary league, because Europe has multiple leagues, China has multiple leagues. We just have the one. We just have the NBA here in the United States. What if there was a secondary league and guys could compete? They've got the G League, but that's more of a developmental thing. What if you had a secondary league that was true professionals making real money? That could be kind of interesting. But anyway, then you have these top 20 teams. Soccer has tons of leagues. Soccer has multiple leagues that are really good, high-end quality leagues, and then they all compete, in different ways. They can kind of even cross-compete. But basketball doesn't do that. So what if the NBA did this, and then you have the upper echelon 20 teams where there's just all the teams are stacked. And it's like, okay, let's make 20 teams that are like the Nets, let's make, or at least 10 or so teams that are as stacked as the Nets, and then 10 more that are like around the Lakers and Jazz arena, right? That could be really interesting. That could be really, really interesting. And you'd see a lot more parity, a lot more back and forth, competitiveness. It could be interesting. But again, last night kind of woke me up. The Nets are going to win it all. It's actually not going to be close if they're healthy. We saw what Kevin Durant did when he came back. We saw what they did winning at a very high level with James Harden, even when KD was out. And so it's like a foregone conclusion. At this point, you'd have to like hope for an injury, which nobody wants to hope that somebody gets injured. That's just not good juju. So you don't want to do that, but I think that's the only chance teams have. Maybe the Nets implode. Maybe Kyrie Irving, the diva that he is, maybe he wants to take another vacation in the playoffs. I don't freaking know. But But that's the only way they're getting beat, is if they beat themselves. Like, the Nets are just too freaking good. They really are. And it just clicked when I saw the Mavericks score, and I saw that Porzingis played well. I saw that Luka played well. I remembered how I used to think that they were one piece away from being a title contender because Luka was MVP caliber. Porzingis is an all-star. And then I was like, last night, I was like, they're not even close. Like, they need two superstars. Not one solid addition. They need two superstar additions to compete with the Nets. That's how far off they are from the Brooklyn Nets. So NBA could use some parity. The Jazz got back on track last night, beat the Blazers. I mentioned CJ McCollum earlier a little bit. The Blazers, they got McCollum back. I was touting the Blazers with Damian as a MVP front runner. And they were doing so well without Yusuf Nurkic and without CJ McCollum. Well, they get both of those players back. They add Norman Powell, and somehow they've gotten worse. They're 5-5 in their last 10. Don't know what's going on with the Blazers. They should be playing much better than they are. They're obviously going to make the playoffs. I think you'll see a first-round exit out of them, though, unless they can turn things around. Because that's a team, they've got the talent, maybe even more talent than a team like Phoenix does. And Phoenix is performing at this super high level. They lost last night to the Clippers, though. Which was expected on this, second night of a back-to-back, but which put the Jazz even further ahead in the standings, one more game ahead than they were above the Suns, now a 2.5-game lead. So sticking with the NBA, very hilarious thing that I heard. Heard it this morning. I think the podcast was released last night. Kevin Durant has a podcast, so he's doing a lot of things other than play basketball. He's podcasting. He's fighting with people on Twitter. He's attacking teenagers on Instagram, fighting on Instagram, attacking teenagers on Twitter. He did come back and play the other night, looked really good. Obviously, we think they're going to win the title. I just went through that. But he has Draymond Green on, and in the most hilarious display of hypocrisy you will ever see, this was said.
That's what I don't appreciate with a lot of young guys in the league today. Like, they come in, they entitled, and I don't like that shit.
I see them come in and they friendly, too. It's like, they would come in on the court. What's up, big homie? Like, how you doing? Like, that's cool. We could say that for after the game, but I'm used to young players coming into the league with like, yo, I'm coming into I'm walking into the ghetto and I'm the newest dude on the block. Like, it don't feel that way. It don't feel that way no more. You feel that in the league too?
Absolutely. They nothing like that. They soft as hell. Man, I found myself this year trying to talk shit to some of these young dudes that won't talk. And they like trying to be a friend.
Yeah.
But that's what these young dudes do nowadays, man. I don't understand it.
Okay, how funny is that? Draymond Green and Kevin Durant are talking about other people being soft. Is that not hilarious? Kevin Durant is talking about other people being soft. This guy, just when I thought he couldn't get any softer, he goes and does something like this. Kevin Durant, who hates Charles Barkley. Both of these guys, Draymond Green and Kevin Durant, have both attacked Charles Barkley and some of the old heads, the guys that played in the 80s and 90s and earlier, for saying that this generation is too soft. They're now doing that. They've hated people that did that to them. They're still in the league, still really in their primes. This is still their generation of basketball. And they're accusing the younger guys of exactly what they hate being accused of by the older guys from them. It's the most wild case of hypocrisy you've ever seen. And of course it's Kevin Durant doing it. This guy is so soft. He was so easy to love when he was with OKC. And ever since then, he's just so easy to not love. Like, he's just so soft, so sensitive. And these guys, like Draymond and Kevin Durant, the irony here is just crazy that it's the two of them, right? Because one of them was up 3-1 against the other. Kevin Durant was up 3-1 in the Western Conference Finals over Draymond Green's Golden State Warriors. Loses that 3-1 lead and then joins the Warriors the very next season. So in that offseason, after you blew a 3-1 lead, you went and joined the guy that beat you. The whole, if you can't beat him, join him. That was Kevin Durant. That is soft. That is buddy-buddy. That is everything he's accusing these younger players of doing. He did that. That same season, that same playoffs, Draymond had a 3-1 lead over LeBron James and the Cavs and blew that 3-1 lead and loses the finals, and then goes to Kevin Durant, please come help us win a championship. Begs him to come join him. We need to win a championship. We need you. So they're buddy-buddy. They are soft. Then they end up hating each other as teammates. The whole thing implodes. Kevin Durant had another year on his contract with the Golden State Warriors, bailed because Draymond called him the B word and they couldn't get along. Draymond literally ruined the dynasty in Golden State. Those guys hate each other. Now they're buddy-buddy on a podcast. Draymond's buddy-buddy with LeBron in different ventures. Like, these guys they are the kings. They are the innovators of being besties with your opponents. Like, literally, these two that are having this hilarious podcast, maybe so that we'll talk about it, maybe because it's getting talked about everywhere. Maybe that's why they did it, because it is so, like, obvious hypocrisy. But they are the ones that started the whole buddy-buddy thing. Like, they're the ones that started the softness and the buddy-buddiness. And anyway, hilarious. So this morning, I get a text, a video from a friend in a group chat of 80s and 90s basketball. I'm going to put it on the screen here for YouTubers watching. For those listening, it's basically, there's no audio, so I'll just do the audio here. But it's basically just a highlight reel of haymakers and hard fouls that happened in the 80s and 90s. And this is the era that, like, in my opinion, again, I was born in 81, so this is the era I grew up watching and loving as a kid. This is the era that, to me, many of the greats played through. You know, the Michael Jordans, of course, come to mind first and foremost. Jordan played through this and still set the record that he set, still scored the points that he scored. To me, this was the era of basketball, right? Today's league is certainly softer and certainly more skilled, though, as well. But this was like basketball back then. It was like freaking hockey. It was more like hockey. I don't think we need fights now. I don't necessarily want to see a bunch of brawls and fights, and but the tough, competitive, physical play. I'm all about that. I am all about that. And now, like, one of the guys in the group chat responded saying that he felt like Meta World Peace or Ron Artest and the Malice at the Palace ruined that. And the Malice at the Palace, for those that don't know, Ron Artest playing for the Indiana Pacers. They're playing at Detroit against the Pistons. The game's already decided. There's like a 9-point difference with 40 seconds left. Like, the game's over. It might have even been more than 9, but the game's over essentially, right? Ron Artest has a hard foul. This is back in November of 2004. Ron Artest has a hard foul on Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace comes at him, shoves him in the face, and a little brawl breaks out, right? It's quickly, really like a scuffle. It's broken up. Ron Artest goes and lays on the scorer's table, and he's kind of just like chilling and trying to like blow off some steam. And a fan kind of tosses a beer cup from the stands, hits Ron Artest. So now he's got beer on him. That would piss me off too, if I'm being honest. And he just blows a fuse, goes berserk, runs into the stands, actually ends up passing the guy that threw the beer at him and starts beating up somebody else, which I shouldn't laugh at, but it is kind of funny. Starts throwing haymakers at fans. Okay, Steven Jackson follows him. He's beating up fans as well. Jermaine O'Neal starts beating up fans. You now have a full-on brawl of fans, Detroit Piston fans versus Indiana Pacer players. Like, the most crazy thing ever. I'll never forget where I was. I was actually working basically as like an intern at ESPN for College Game Day on set. The night before they were going to do the BYU-Utah football game. They were in Salt Lake City, College Game Day was. And I was on set, and we're all just watching. I actually got to watch this with Kirk Herbstreit. And we're just like, this is the craziest thing. These guys are done. Like, their careers are done. And Ron Artest was suspended for a full season. Like, it was wild, wild stuff. And so my friend was saying it's because of that incident that you don't see this type of play anymore. And I kind of agree, because after that, David Stern he was the commissioner of the NBA at the time. He did institute a pretty strict dress code and code of conduct, which is now they're pulling the reins back on that quite a bit. You're seeing guys just kind of be more themselves. But I think it's more the advent of social media. There's pros and cons to social media. A big negative aspect is I do think it makes guys softer. I do think it makes people more sensitive. One of the pros is that people do become friends, but from a competitive standpoint, that could be considered a negative, right? Because a lot of these guys are friends, and so you don't go at it. If you don't view them as your enemy, if you don't hate them, you're a lot less likely to go and knock them with a hard foul, right? Although when I was growing up playing with some of my best friends, one of the friends that actually put that in the video, some of my most physical moments were competing against them, I don't know. This generation's definitely softer, definitely plays less physical. The rules are such that they kind of have to as well. Again, I don't want necessarily to see guys out there getting in fights like hockey. I do think the physical competitive play would be more fun. You still see that. The chippiness is fun. Adds drama. It's fun. But just hilarious that Draymond and Kevin Durant, of all people, are podcasting about it. Like, it's just honestly hilarious to me. Okay, so sticking with the... no, we're not going to stick with the NBA. We're going to move to the NFL now. The NFL, Deshaun Watson, some activity there in his case. Just this morning, a judge basically, required, maybe required is the better word, required that one of the women who's accusing him of sexual assault come forward with her name. He's saying you can no longer hide behind anonymity if you're going to sue someone for large amounts of money and accuse him of these types of things. Your attorney is using the media against Deshaun Watson, using the media and the public opinion to try and win this trial, win this case. You need to put your name to it or we're not going to move forward. Really big deal. Not sure how much I agree or disagree with it. I see both sides. I see the fact that in most sexual assault cases, the victim is allowed to stay anonymous. I do see, though, in a case like this where the attorney is drastically using the media and the court of public opinion to basically crucify Deshaun Watson, guilty until, he's making him guilty before he's proven guilty, which is the opposite of our judicial system. We're innocent until proven guilty. So I see both sides. But we did have one, I talked about this briefly yesterday, and I've got the clip now. One brave woman has stepped forward, has put her name and her face to the accusation. She's not part of the Tony Busby group of 21. She's her own separate person, having her own separate allegations and accusations, and here's her interview.
I'm here to take back the power and take back control. I am a survivor of assault and harassment. Deshaun Watson is my assaulter and my harasser. Deshaun Watson assaulted and harassed me on March 30th, 2020, in my own home, doing what I love most, massage therapy. My father, who was once a diehard Texans fan, can no longer mention his name without turning red, seething with disappointment. I think that's the most heartbreaking aspect of it all. We were all deceived into thinking Deshaun Watson was a good guy. And unfortunately, we know that good guys can do terrible things.
Okay, I'm no acting expert or anything like that. I'm not a judge. I'm not a legal expert. But that seems pretty freaking sincere to me. That seems pretty genuine. I don't see acting there. That doesn't look like a money-hungry person that's just making this up. Again, innocent until proven guilty. But my opinion is that Deshaun Watson is guilty. Deshaun Watson is guilty. That's my opinion. Like, this seems very sincere. This is the type of thing, and maybe this is why a judge is saying, look, we got to put names and faces to this, because this type of video is so condemning to Deshaun Watson, like raw emotion, a name, a face, a story with real detail, with true emotion. This is so condemning to Deshaun Watson's case that if more women step up bravely and do what this young lady did, you're going to see Deshaun Watson in a whole heap of trouble. I don't think we're going to see Deshaun Watson play football next year. And that's a real shame. Not a shame because we can't see him play, although that sucks too because he's a great football player. It's a shame because he did this to these women and did this to himself. And again, innocent until proven guilty, but my personal opinion is we've got a serial predator on our hands here. That's my honest opinion. And I think Texan fans need to prepare for the fact that he's not going to play football next year. Probably never again for the Texans is my guess. It might be bad enough that he has a hard time even getting a job. Again, we've talked about value privilege. And when you're as talented as him and as young as him, I think you'll see him get a second chance. I don't know what's going to happen. This is going to play out in court. Does not look good, though, for Deshaun Watson. Does not look good at all. So we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, going to wrap up with this. Tomorrow was supposed to be the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight, which is really funny that they were going to fight at all. Arguably the greatest boxer of all time. I don't think he is. I think Mike Tyson is the greatest boxer of all time. Some people listening are thinking, that's blasphemous. It's Muhammad Ali. Well, that's fine. I think in their primes, you take Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali, and I think Mike Tyson wins that fight. That's just me. But record-wise, Floyd Mayweather Jr. is right up there with the best of the best of the best, right? Never been beaten. Now like 43 years old, and apparently he's going to fight this YouTube star who's never done any boxing at all. He's like done one match. I think he lost it. And they were supposed to fight, but it keeps getting postponed. It got postponed from February to April, and now, like, as far as I can see, there's like no date now. I can't even tell what's going on. And now you've got Dana White, who's president of UFC, posting pictures with Floyd Mayweather, you know, with like kind of these cryptic captions. What's going to happen here? What's going on? And I'm like, okay, is this fight ever going to happen? Is Floyd Mayweather at age 43 going to join UFC? Is he going to box somebody from UFC and do another Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather type thing? I don't freaking know. Doesn't look like we're going to see Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather fight. Certainly not tomorrow, and I feel like maybe not ever, but we will see. But guys, that's all the time I have for today. It's the weekend. Go have a fantastic weekend. You guys are awesome. Again, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button. You guys are awesome. I'll see you Monday. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out stbsportstake.com. Simply the best in sports.
'Cause we are warriors, warriors.